May 25th, 2020, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Police are told George Floyd used a counterfeit $20 bill to buy cigarettes. As they approach his car, Floyd reacts.
Hey, man.
Stay in the car. Let me see your other hand.
I'm sorry.
Let me see your other hand.
Please, Mazza.
Both hands.
Do nothing.
Put your fucking hands up right now. Let me see your other hand.
When police take him into custody, there's a brief scuffle. Heading to the car, Floyd becomes louder, more erratic.
Stop falling down. Stand up. Stay on your feet and face the car door.
You get a search on him?
No. Please, can I talk to you, man? I just want to talk to you, man. Please, let me talk to you, please. Man, you ain't listening to nothing you're saying, so we're not going to listen to nothing you're saying.
As police put him in the car, his resistance increases.
I can't breathe, please.
Cops take him back out and down to the ground. Once on the ground, Officer Derek Chauvin puts his knee on Floyd's neck. He'd keep it there for over 9 minutes. This footage instantly goes viral. Protests break out nationwide. At least 19 people were killed. Thousands of businesses burned. Over 2,000 police officers injured, and billions of dollars in damages. Those protests and the violence did spark change. The elephant in the room is this, though. Did those changes make things better or worse? Did they actually make Black lives better? Now, 3.5 years later, we can more clearly see the effects of what happened. This isn't about the Black Lives Matter organization, which exploded in popularity, contributions, and later controversy about how that money was spent. It's about how George Floyd's death and the broader BLM movement affected the United States. Some of those changes were symbolic, and others were substantive, both by corporate America and the government. Many were positive, but some caused fatal harm in the Black community. Let's start with early reactions. Symbolic moves to demonstrate support. BLM signs popped up on cars and storefronts. Murals and slogans showed up everywhere. Politicians took note. Now, the longer you watch politicians, the less you see them as actually leading the country, as much as they sense which way the band's going and they jump in front. In this instance, they did more kneeling than jumping. As a candidate, Joe Biden kneeled in church, and as president, he kept it up. Leaders in Congress and the Senate did as well. Washington, D.C.'s mayor had city workers paint Black Lives Matter on streets leading up to the White House. And the Washington National Cathedral created racial justice-themed stained glass windows. Some governments removed statues of past historical figures, while mobs took down others. Corporations weren't looking for votes, but money. They also signaled their support through statements and pledges to donate to Black causes. Those pledges added up, and just among the largest 50 corporations in the country, they committed to $50 billion of support. Some of that was cash donations, but the majority of it, about $45 billion, was through increased loans and investments in the Black community, spearheaded by J.P. Morgan Chase and Bank of America. Now, that's not pure charity, since they do stand to profit from that, but it's significant. Corporations also implemented DEI policies. Now, those are controversial, with many people calling them outright racist themselves, but they did result in more Black hires at corporations. Bloomberg calculated that in 2021, among the largest 100 corporations, among new hires, 94% of them were people of color, and the share of white workers dropped in the vast majority of those corporations. On the government side, the largest response to the movement were changes in police policies. The biggest change was defunding many police forces.
To end policing as we know it.
Minneapolis City Council pledging radical reform.
Minneapolis pledged to dismantle its police force, and dozens of other cities slashed budgets. Overall, cities pledged to cut close to $2 billion per year from police departments. The federal government and some cities started restricting the use of chokeholds when arresting people. Some cities, and the federal government as well, also banned no-knock warrants after the police killing of Breonna Taylor, the victim of a no-knock warrant gone horribly wrong.
My girlfriend's dead.
Tell them we have 11015.
What? How's your girlfriend? Somebody, y'all was banging at the door and she said, "Who is it?" And they just started shooting.
No, we down 3 times. Police search warrant.
There's somebody who's dead?
Yeah, my girlfriend.
Who was shooting at us?
Other cities mandated police de-escalation training, or required officers to intervene if a colleague was using excessive force. And many banned or restricted the use of non-lethal weapons, such as pepper spray, tear gas, or rubber bullets. Finally, body cameras. They're now becoming standard in law enforcement. In many instances, police agencies must publicly release the footage when they use lethal force. Probably more than any of the other police reforms, body cameras will improve policing. They'll keep bad cops in check, and they'll help clear good cops who are falsely accused of misconduct. We saw other impacts on the criminal justice system as well. A number of cities instituted cashless bail, which often released people arrested for violent crimes within hours. A new set of district attorneys in major cities had a new attitude, prioritizing what they called social justice, charging fewer criminals and sending fewer to jail. Police changed their attitudes as well. In the year after George Floyd, police resignations rose by 18% and retirements rose by 45%. And the cops who stayed on the job policed less. Many feared being the star of the next viral video, even if they used force legitimately, and they backed off of proactive policing. City-level data showed that officers stopped fewer people and made fewer arrests. The result? Crime shot up, especially murder. Between 2019 and 2020, the U.S. murder rate rose 29%, the largest yearly increase in 60 years. That's about 5,000 more murders than the year before. And overall, the U.S. saw about 14,000 additional homicides before rates started falling back to relative normal in 2023. It was dubbed the Minneapolis effect by some criminologists who'd seen this pattern play out before after other high-profile police killings. Many in the media seemed baffled at the rise, trying to blame COVID or rising gun sales as Americans grew more concerned over crime. Unfortunately, what was crystal clear was who was dying. It was mainly black men. There's nothing equitable about murder. Black males represent just 6.5% of this country, but nearly half of the murder victims. That crime spike resulted in the additional deaths of about 7,000 black men, however you look at it. All of the factors I mentioned made a difference. And while no one wants out-of-control cops, things go especially screwy when there's none. We saw that play out in Seattle, where protesters took over an entire neighborhood and police abandoned it altogether. They called it CHOP. The media couldn't get enough of the anarchists and the urban gardeners who took charge of their own community. The Seattle mayor even predicted a summer of love. Instead, it quickly became a haven of rapes, robbery, and all other sorts of violence. And after multiple shootings left 2 teenagers dead, authorities took back the area a few weeks after it had begun. Bad cops are bad news, but no cops, or even ineffective cops, well, that creates a mess as well. Within a year, a number of cities had reversed their policies of defunding police. Some, like San Francisco's mayor, did a quick pivot from defunding to Dirty Harry.
It is time that the reign of criminals who are destroying our city, it is time for it to come to an end. And it comes to an end when we take the steps to be more aggressive with law enforcement, more aggressive with the changes in our policies, and less tolerant of all the bullshit that has destroyed our city.
The longer you watch politics, the more you'll see changes behaving like a pendulum, going to an extreme and then going back. This one, in some aspects, is swinging back very quickly. Overall, George Floyd's death and the subsequent Black Lives Matter movement profoundly affected the country. You can evaluate those changes and decide whether the good outweighed the bad. Like most of the topics I discuss here, there's no simple answers. I'm Ken LaCorte. I did my best to keep my biases out of this and give you a fair overview. Let me know if I screwed up. I'll post any corrections in a pinned post. Stay curious and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Thanks again.